Avatar 2, The Way of the Water, is just less than 1 week away, and we've got some fresh box office projections from Box Office Pro to discuss how well is this movie going to do, especially considering its reported incredible budget size and marketing spend. James Cameron has previously alluded to the fact that this movie is going to have to be one of the top 5 grossing films of all time, unadjusted for inflation, in order for it to be a profitable endeavor. That would put its metrics somewhere around $2 billion globally. But there's some nuance to that. Let's look at where the projections are coming in and get into it. Here we go. Renegade Online. Well, welcome back, folks. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's great to see all of you out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video that are not yet subscribed to the channel, please do take a moment and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment below the video before you head out the door today. YouTube loves the comments, screaming towards 16,000 subscribers, all thanks to you, the viewers out there. We appreciate each and every one of you. Let's get into the story from Box Office Pro. The newly updated long-range forecast coming in from Friday, December 9th, talking about several movies, but of course, the biggest of which, Avatar, The Way of the Water, the big James Cameron production. Now, almost 13 years past the release of its original, let's see where the data is going at this point. 1 week out from a day, and James Cameron's and Avatar fans have waited for since 2009, Avatar, The Way of the Water continues to build steam ahead of its imminent release. Social media review embargoes dropped immediately after a coordinated global premiere earlier this week, with many critics praising another technological leap forward by the film's visual effects alongside a heartfelt adventure narrative that should attract fans of the original movie. Online sentiment and pre-sales are reacting accordingly, as Way of the Water's box office ceiling looks to be increasing from what were already event-level expectations. Though not necessarily a negative against it, some degree of caution is still wise when trying to extrapolate Avatar: The Way of the Water's possible trajectories. Expectations for a more backloaded run than the likes of a comic book tentpole remain the status quo, particularly given the 192-minute runtime. That's right, 3 hours and 12-minute runtime for this film. The unknowns regarding general audience's willingness to return to 3D-heavy screenings and how they'll react to high frame rate presentations remain wild card elements. And those are bona fide caveats to this. How will audiences react? Is this something that people will return to see over and over again? I personally have an issue with 3D presentations, and as it seems to this point, most, if not all, of the PLF, that's premium large format screens that Avatar has booked from Fox and Disney distribution, seem to be coming in 3D. And for me, putting on those glasses and sitting through a 3-hour movie in 3D is going to be a knife turning in my head. I have visual issues with watching 3D presentations. It actually does give me headaches. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but of course, if you don't want to see it in 3D, you can go see it on a regular screen. The problem is there seem to be very few, if any, premium large format screens that are displaying this film not in 3D. So it's either a small theater or a big theater with 3D with the better sound. Obviously, I would rather a PLF presentation to watch this movie in, but I don't know if I can get through the 3D aspect. And the runtime is going to be a problem as well, because that means there will be fewer screenings that can be scheduled throughout a given day at a given theater with that longer runtime. That means that if they want to expand the footprint in the theaters and offer more available time slots for customers to come in and see the film, they're going to have to consume more screens within the same complex. That means that other movies are going to have to get pushed out. Of course, this weekend, any screens, once Avatar 2 opens, that are still held at this point by Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, are going to be surrendered to Avatar 2. So that means Wakanda Forever's run in the box office at this point, as of this weekend on Saturday, December 10th, is pretty much over. Anything that comes in after this point is going to be a very small trickle. And this weekend, as it stands right now, looks like it's shaping up to be around a $10 million final big weekend for Wakanda Forever. And that's a problem that we will discuss more on the Sunday live stream tomorrow on Sunday, December 11th at 5 p.m. Central with WDW Pro from that Park Place. Make sure you stay tuned for that one. But let's see what Avatar 2 is shaping up to be. The 3-day opening range has adjusted up by 9%. 1 week ago, the figures were coming in at $150 to $180 million. They have now been adjusted to $167 to $192 million opening in the domestic market, US and Canada. The domestic total low-high range has also expanded accordingly 9%. And they're believing that $662 to $861 million will be the final range for the domestic haul. Now, right there, it should be an eye-opener. Those numbers are huge, but what makes the numbers even more ridiculous is the leg out from the initial projections. So when we talk about an opening weekend here on Valiant Renegade, we can project with some degree of accuracy, depending on the type of movie and the hype that it receives, how much further beyond that opening weekend it will leg out to. So if the opening weekend in the case of Avatar, let's say comes in, to make the math easy, around $200 million, and then according to Box Office Pro, might make it to somewhere close to $900 million, that would be an enormous leg out. You're talking about a leg out of over 4x in this case. This movie could actually leg out much more than other Marvel pieces, for example, where we know that Marvel films basically haul in somewhere close to half or slightly less than half of their entire box office run in the first 4 or 5 days. That doesn't seem to be the case with the projections here for Avatar: Way of the Water. This movie could have a long runoff, but of course that's all dependent on what the audience reaction is following that opening weekend. Even giving it through the Christmas holiday the next week, because this is a great time of year to release a movie like this. And hopefully, for this film's sake, and it's going to need it, a very high haul in the box office. Let's look back at the first one to get an idea of what might happen. So back in 2009, Avatar brought in about $760 million. I realize what you're looking at on the screen indicates 785, but that figure also includes about $20 to $30 million that came in from a recent re-release just a few months ago here in 2022 in anticipation of the sequel's release. The international box office came in at a staggering $2.1 billion for a worldwide haul of $2.9 billion. China was the biggest market, coming in at $265 million. The second place market was Russia at $120.5 million. South Korea, $112. The UK, $107. Australia, $76.6. Italy at $71.2. That Chinese box office haul was the first big American release in China. And if we scale that up to what it should do in China today, if we assume it does the same as it did back in 2009, given the addition of tens of thousands of more theatrical screens in China and inflationary pressures, one would hope that Avatar 2, The Way of the Water, could actually pull off a number somewhere close to $700 or $800 million, if not slightly higher, in China alone. Now, that number would be great news for Fox and Disney. Of course, the problem is that only about 20 to 25% of that haul would make it back to the American distributor. So if Avatar 2 does $800 million in China, only about $200 million of that or so is going to come back to Fox and Disney. The rest of the world outside of China will return somewhere in the low 40 ranges, probably somewhere to the tune of about 43%. Given the size of this film, and given the fact that this film, as of this point, is supposed to have a much more traditional, exclusive theatrical window. But the bottom line is this: as of right now, Avatar 2: The Way of the Water is in the running to have the biggest opening weekend score of this year so far, not only domestically, but also internationally and globally as well. If we think back, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness had a $430 million global open. I expect Avatar: The Way of the Water at this point to have something that is probably much bigger. As of right now, every international market seems to be having a concurrent release. They will all release Avatar: The Way of the Water within 24 to 48 hours of one another, including China. And if China comes in with a $100 million opening weekend or higher, we could see something north of $500 maybe even 600 million as an opening for Avatar 2. And that's exactly the kind of start that James Cameron and company really needs with this. With a production budget that is reportedly coming in somewhere around close to $400 million for this sequel, and probably a marketing spend that is easily $250 to $300 million, you really are looking at a movie that needs to break up around that $2 billion mark, especially if, say, 500 or 600 million of that is coming from China, where the returns, the rentals back to the studios, are much smaller. There's a lot here that needs to be made up. Stay tuned right here on Valiant Renegade. We'll have more updates coming in the next week or so, and make sure you check out the live stream on Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We've got a lot more to discuss. See you then. Take care.